Absolutely, Martin. The King has had an incredibly busy diary today, but he's had to find time in his diary to carry out one of his most important constitutional duties. He spoke to the Prime Minister, as the Prime Minister confirmed in Downing Street earlier today, and the Prime Minister asked his permission to hold a general election and dissolve Parliament. The King has granted that permission, and as the Prime Minister confirms, that general election will take place on July 4th. Every seat in the House of Commons is now vacant. Any bill that the King has not already given royal assent to will not become law in this parliamentary session, and dissolving Parliament remains one of the King's royal prerogative. But the King will only dissolve Parliament on the advice of the Prime Minister. That is what has been confirmed today in Downing Street. And the general election, of course, as I said, will be held on the 4th of July. But that is an issue for the King potentially, because 4th of July falls within Holyrood Week, or in other words, Royal Week, where the King is in Scotland, in Edinburgh, taking part in the traditional week of royal engagements there. On the 2nd of July, he's due to hold a garden party at the Palace of Holyrood in Edinburgh. So in theory, this does mean that the King is going to have to cut short his week in Edinburgh to potentially come back down to London, ready for the day after the general election on July 5th, to appoint the Prime Minister following that election. Now, of course, usually that does happen in the building behind me in Buckingham Palace, and that is where the King appointed Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister. The time before that, it was the late Queen Elizabeth II appointing Liz Truss, and due to health reasons, that appointment happened at Balmoral in September 2022. But usually that would happen in Buckingham Palace, which makes me think that the King's diary is going to have to be shifted around somewhat. But as it stands, the King has granted the Prime Minister of this country to hold a general election on July 4th and dissolve Parliament.